Hey YouTube, it's Kel. It's funny, I was just noticing as I started this video, this was not even planned, that the shirt that I'm wearing, I matched the bunny. That was not even planned. So funny. Okay. Funny. I'm a funny bunny. Oh my God. I cannot believe this is going to be public, but I don't care because these are things that make people human. So tonight I wanted to talk about the question that I got asked a lot in therapy sessions. Gosh, sorry you guys adjusting this, but I'm not going to start over. I will figure it out eventually. So basically, one question I got asked a lot about as a therapist throughout my practice was, how do I find my sense of life direction, or how do I find my life quote purpose, which I mean could have a million answers. So I'm not even attempting to answer the life purpose one, but like life direction. I along the way in the last 20 years have gotten at least a few good practical tips that I want, we could get into the philosophy all day long, but I'm not going to do that here because, it's not as fun when it's just one-sided and me talking to the camera, but also because I just wanted to give you some practical tips because people, I think in therapy, sometimes people just want, they're like, great, we can, I don't know, talk all day long, but what can I take away with me? Right. So, let's just give you 3 practical tips on if you are searching for meaning in life's direction for you. 3 kind of amazing, I feel like, tips and things I have figured out along the way that might be a guiding post for people. So the first one is childhood dreams. Now, a lot of times when you are a child and, early on, you kind of think you're going to be one thing or, and then you just decide later it's not practical or it's not going to make money or all those things. I would challenge you, if you are searching for quote life direction, to look at what your childhood dreams are. So, or were, is there, even if it's not meant to be your profession, which, we could get into the distinction of making the things you love an actual profession, which is a whole different interesting debate, but that's not my point here. My point here is just to get you to have more, pleasure and happiness in your life. So one of the ways to do that is to look at your childhood dreams and what did you love, and is that being incorporated at all into your life right now? 2, whatever, you know what I mean? Do you actually, so is it being incorporated into your life? Do you want to make money off of it? Is it something, I'll give you an example. One of the things that I realized recently, so when I was young, I loved poetry. And then literally after a year or 2, I'm talking kindergarten, whatever, I kind of just lost it. I was like, that's not practical. I don't think I'm going to become a poet, as a, successful entrepreneur or something, so I kind of just lost it. But then it's funny because I have just recently picked it up and it's become such a joy to me. And so I talk to a lot of people. Dancing is I talk to a lot of people who have had these childhood joys and then they lose them. And so my challenge, I guess, to you would be, I also wanted to be a chef, which is just so funny, but, because I'm a decent cook, but I'm not the best cook, but I really like doing it. And so but for a long time I didn't cook because it was just me. And so I was but the point is I feel those can be guideposts as to what is going to be your most fulfilling life. Sometimes in your heart, you just know if you were kind of put on this planet to do something that's uniquely you. And a lot of times I think we're shown, with the innocence of a child, we're shown in our heart, what makes you happy that young, not always, but at least it can give you an interesting peek at what a good hobby might be for you, right? So, okay, let's just start there. Number 2, obviously, I think I said 3 ways, I might do 4. Number 2 is obviously just sit in kind of what I would call stillness about it. Listen. A lot of times people say, like, we pray a lot, but we don't listen a lot, So, like, again, not to get too spiritual, but sitting in silence, whether you want to call it meditating, whether you want to call it, like, waiting for your higher power to speak to you and just listening, I think is obviously as important, or if not a form of prayer or as prayer. So kind of, if you want to seek direction, just kind of like sitting there and saying, to your higher power or whatever, I'm open to you, like, speaking to me about this subject or whatever. And then just be silent, right? Okay, I'm going to keep going because there's a lot of good practical. There was another thing I read recently. This wasn't even on my list to talk about today, but it was called Conversations with God. And this is, again, I'm not going to get into my own personal spiritual life. This is not going to happen. But it was a great tip for journaling, which is basically when you start a question like, what do I find, I don't know, fulfillment in, right? You basically just sit there and you listen, and whether you want to call it Holy Spirit speaking to your soul, whether you want to call it the divine spark in you, whether you just want to call it inherent higher power knowledge, whatever you want to call it, if you want to listen and then you answer and you kind of have a dialogue with yourself with what I call like a higher wisdom, in dialectical behavior therapy, they call it the wise mind. And I don't know if she means it spiritually, but there's a link to me, but basically it's just like listening to yourself. What is that inner voice that a lot of times has the answers before you are like going and seeking everybody else for them, right? So I would actually bump that to number 1, like listen to yourself and your higher wisdom and your, inner self first, God, higher power, whatever you want to call it. Then I would say childhood dreams, do the like journaling exercise, conversations with God or your higher self or whatever you want to call it. Then these were, I wasn't even thinking about talking about a couple of those, but another thing so Martha Beck, a long time ago, she wrote a book. It's called Finding Your Own North Star. And one of the things I still remember about it, 20 years later, is that she said to write down your top 3, I believe she called them peak experiences, but I'm not quite sure if that's the phrase she used, but it was something along the lines of like, remember in the last, I could be totally wrong about this. I'm referencing it, but essentially remember in your history what the happiest times in your life were and what made them so happy, So, and I can't remember if she said it in your childhood, like in your adolescence, or if it was throughout but whatever. The point is was it that you were surrounded by community for some people? Like if you picked, some trip you went on, or was it you were surrounded by community? Was it you were developing a new strength that you absolutely loved, or a new hobby? Or was it that you felt really good at something and it was like a special niche of like knowledge or skill? Was it that you, I can't even think of another one, but basically the point is like, were you of service? Like, were you, so what was it about those experiences that was it like compassion and humanitarianism? Was it, I'm trying to think. Was it like the high of achieving a goal? You know what I mean? So look back on like, identify like your top 3 to 5, like highest peak experiences in the last, 5 to 10, 15 years or whatever, or even in your adolescence, teen years or whatever, and ask yourself, what was it about those things that I love so much? And then that will give you another, again, guidepost in your life's direction, in your, like, what is your, and again, her book was called Finding Your North Star, and I really like that, because like finding what I consider like your ideal life with the most well-being and like the most happiness. We're not going to be happy all the time, nor would I want to be. That would be so boring. But like, you do want to, I think, live your happiest life with the most well-being, right? And like most fulfilling life. And so so the question would be like, do you know what those experiences are? Could you identify why they made you so fulfilled? Okay, then the next and last one I really loved. One of my, I was right out of college, and one of my roommates, her name was Amanda, so shout out to Amanda if you ever see this. I love you so much. But when she was kind of struggling with life's direction, her and I were both a little bit lost out of college and kind of like, where should we go? What should we do? We did this humanitarian trip together, and then she basically was kind of, I knew where I was going to go. I went into like an LMFT program, and then she was kind of like, I don't know exactly, like she could do multiple things. This girl's like, just, I love her. She was amazing. And but she said that she read in a book about asking, quote, elders or friends, so essentially like wise people that you know, what your strengths are, that just come naturally, and what those top 3 strengths are. So it was funny because I remember getting an email from her, and it was a follow-up while we were roommates, and it was basically like, hey friends, you know, I'm really looking into like which direction I should pursue and what comes naturally to me, but also what's a strength and what I should build off of. And I was wondering if you could let me know what you think my best 3 strengths are. And I loved that so much, because I feel like if this world was operating, if we were developing everybody's strengths and like also what they love to do, then this world would be a very different place. And so she said, I wrote her back, and then she basically took all of it in from all these different sources. So I think it was Native American culture that asked you to go, like wants you to go before your elders, and then, okay, I'm not sure, don't quote me on that. It was some culture in specific. I thought it was Native, but and oh, that's lovely, my background pal. So I kind of don't even care. I'm still getting to know all the podcast stuff. So, okay. So what she said was, she basically took all those strengths and then put them together and saw like, what were the themes? What did people all notice about me, you know, that I haven't noticed about myself, or that maybe that I knew about myself, it just confirmed, you know? So and then she took that, she ended up making it into a company. So, long story short, those are just, I think, 3 to 5 practical exercises you can do if you are feeling lost to narrow your strengths, narrow your sense of direction, again, finding your North Star, right? So I really love them. I felt like they were so effective and powerful that I definitely have kept them all these years, obviously. So I just wanted to pop on and send them out to anyone who that could help. So I'm sending love tonight, and I hope that you are doing well and this finds you well, and I will see you next time.